Welcome and thanks for joining me for the Gut Health Turnaround Series 2.0, 21 ways to heal your gut, reclaim your energy, and look and feel amazing. My name is Leah Kline, Health and Wholeness Coach, and I am your host. Today I'm being joined by Matt Gersper. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and he is going to be talking about premium gasoline or junk food, a nutritional philosophy. So that should be interesting. And just to give you a little background on him, Matt Gersper is the founder of Happy Living. He believes in a better self is always possible today and every day. Matt dedicates his professional time and resources developing best practices for health and happiness. Happy Living is on a mission to improve the health and well-being of the world, one person at a time. Their team of Happy Living experts is searching for, experimenting with, and sharing ideas, experiences, and products for people wanting to improve their health and well-being. Previously, Matt spent 30 years helping businesses in retail, accounts payable auditing, and international trade compliance. He specialized in business processing process optimization and best practices development, which I see have pattern here that's converted. Matt graduated from the University of California, Davis, where he studied economics, played football, and pole vaulted for the track team. Immediately after college, he pursued his childhood dream of becoming a professional athlete, only to come up short with the unique distinction of being cut from 3 different football teams with 3 different leagues: Canadian, USFL, and NFL. So, all right, so to get us started, what inspired you to, start learning about exercise and nutrition?
Yeah, great question. My entire life I was an athlete, so exercise always came very naturally to me. And probably about in my mid-30s or so, in the middle of raising a family, I went down to go get a physical exam for the first time as a real adult. All the time before that, it was associated with sports or something like that, all the way through high school and college. And I went to get my physical exam, and I got my blood work done, and I was fit, and I felt good, and I had no problems. I was exercising on a regular basis, and I had a cholesterol scare. And this was back, I don't know, I'm 55 now, so this is like 20 years ago. Before that, we have much better means of measuring cholesterol now. And it turns out that my cholesterol pattern happens to be very, very high HDL, often reading up to 100, which is very high off the charts, but also pretty high LDL as well. And back at the time, they didn't even know whether or not the HDL compensated for the LDL. They certainly didn't know about the big, fluffy, healthy LDL that we need. There's no way of measuring that. And so I was in the borderline of having to go on a statin. And it would have been a real crisis for me had I done it, because I didn't need one, as it turns out. But what we decided to do is to start to implement some better health practices. And that was the first time really that I started thinking about my diet. My philosophy for diet up to that point was, as long as my weight was where I wanted it to be, I could eat whatever I wanted. And so the title of the article you mentioned was, I was putting premium gasoline in my car, but I was eating junk food. And I had to learn at that time that I couldn't really exercise my way out of a bad diet. I had to learn how to eat properly. So that's how it kind of got started.
And probably many of people have had a similar experience where they, figure out that exercise is not all of it. It's part, but it's not the whole picture. Right. So, what is your nutritional philosophy, or put another way, premium gasoline or junk food?
Yeah. So after the cholesterol scare, I started working on developing a better practice of eating. I subsequently I read a book some years later, the Wheat Belly book, and that really got me starting to think and learning about some of the challenges that we have in modern food supply. And then I subsequently read the book Grain Brain, and that exposed me to even more learning about what our food supply is like, learning about good healthy fats, learning about the challenge of wheat, not only for your gut, which Wheat Belly focused on, but also for your brain. It's where I started learning about healthy fats, helped promote big fluffy LDL, which we need for brain health. We shouldn't be squashing our LDL down unnecessarily. And so all of that kind of rolled into my own personal philosophy of how I'm taking care of myself from a nutritional standpoint. And it basically breaks down to 6 pieces. The first piece is to eat real food. I don't eat hardly any processed food if I can avoid it. To really focus on eating high quality, healthy fats, lots of them. Trying to reduce the bad carbs as much as I possibly can. Totally eliminate sugar. So that's the second part. The third part is, I think even when you're working really hard to eat good food, that there's been so much damage to our agricultural system and the soil that we have and the nutrients in the soil. So I believe it is also probably important to add supplements. And the supplements I purposely went after are several: coenzyme Q10, resveratrol, omega-3 fatty acids. I work with a company that has a brain boosting mixture. I don't know exactly what all is in it, but it's targeting specific brain health. I use melatonin, and then another mixture of vitamins that's designed to support youthful aging, even with science on trying to repair and heal, or at least more slowly wear out our telomeres, which is a marker of youthfulness. Yeah. So that's the third component, is supplement. I added about, so I do a monthly fast and cleanse, a 36-hour fast with, again, the nutritional company that I work with. It's called Isogenics. I don't mind mentioning the name. They provide a cleansing mixture, so I use that and basically do a 36-hour fast. This coming Thursday will be my 82nd one, so I'm getting on to almost 7 years of that. The fifth component of the philosophy is measure and adjust. So this is all, especially for me, Leah, you have a lot of doctors and real professionals that are on the panel with me here. I'm not one of those. I'm a student, and I'm trying to figure out what's the best for me. And I'm using my platform at Happy Living to say, here's what I'm doing. And if this fits for you too, maybe there's some things that I've learned that you could apply to your life. So the fifth part is, and even if you are talking and working with experts, all of us are individual. And so what's going to work for you is not the same as going to work for me, even if we're going to the same expert. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to measure and adjust. And the measurements that I'm working on are, I record my body weight once a month. I record my resting heart rate, and that's a real good indicator, I believe, of just the overall fitness of your body. Because of my cholesterol scare, I've been measuring my cholesterol twice a year. And then most recently, I've had another scare a little bit. I got my anabolic hormone system tested. And the doc says that my hormones have been blasted from years of chronic stress. So I'm working to get those back under control. That's another part of my testing. And then moving into the future, I think I might look at, I've started to measure body fat. I think it's a good marker. I'm really interested in bringing genetics in. I haven't done the genetics yet. So the fifth one is to measure and adjust, keep working at it to develop the right process for me. And then number 6 is a real fun concept that I ran across. It's a Japanese concept. The words are hara hachibu. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've actually, hard to practice though.
So it means literally, or translated, eat until you're 80% full.
Yeah.
So I try to do that as a part of my daily living, that enjoy what you're eating, but, try to pay attention when you start to get full, and just go ahead and put the food down. So those are the 6 parts of my philosophy.
All right. And so how does this work out for you on a daily basis? How do you, what do you do as a regular part of working out that philosophy?
Well, so I pretty much I eat 2 or 3 meals a day. I eat within the parameters that I just said to you. It's not very glamorous. It's not very fun, but I'm cooking only with fresh whole foods, and then mixing them up and playing with them as much as I can, eating lots of vegetables. And but basically, I'm a pretty disciplined guy, and so once I've decided I'm going to do something, I take my supplements when I'm supposed to take them. I stick to my routine, pretty well. And I learned one of the recently, really, only maybe 5, 6, 7 months ago, when I started getting into when I had my anabolic hormone scare, and the doc says, "Hey, man, and if you asked me if I was stressed, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10's high stress, I would say I'm about a 2. And so probably I've just been lying to myself the whole time. And I went through the last 8 years of really, really bitter divorce, breakup, and also some real challenges at my previous job before I sold my company. And so I think I was just coping with a lot of stress, thought I was, but my body was taking hits. And I think that's what happened to us. That's also happened to us with nutrition. We've thought we've been eating well, but our bodies have been taking hits. And so once I started to learn that stress is a major part of this also, if I eat something that's not good for me, it creates stress in my body, it creates inflammation in my body. If I am upset about something, that also creates stress in my body and inflammation in my body. The same thing. And so I started learning that if I'm at an environment where I can't eat the way I want to eat, I don't need to get upset about it. I'm going to use the 80-20 rule. I'm going to do right most of the time, and probably maybe more 90-10. 90% of the time I do it right. But if I don't have the chance, or if I miss something, or if it slips up, or I just have a bad day, or I can't get to my exercise regime that day, the stress I used to put on myself for having missed that was actually causing the very damage that I'm trying to fix in the first place. So I'm trying to really relax about it and do as good as I can every day within the framework that I've created, and then just try to live peacefully with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned a number of supplements that you're taking on a regular basis. Can you explain a little bit why you particularly chose the ones you did?
I'm not sure.
As much as you can.
I think it happened quite a few years ago. I think I started, it's about 7 years ago, when I don't exactly know what the impetus was for it, but I was looking specifically to add to my nutritional process. And one of the things I think back at the time, the coenzyme Q10 was starting to be talked about a lot. The fish oils were starting to be talked about a lot. And so at that time, I went looking for a solution to add that to. I think I was just using a multivitamin at the time, and just going with that. And I thought, well, I'd like to add this, especially I think it was for brain health. There's a lot of talk about brain health. So I went out and I found this company, Isogenics, that happened to be, they're headquartered out of Phoenix, Arizona. I used to live in Arizona. And a friend of mine was selling the vitamins. So I said, hey, let me take a look at those. I specifically said, I'm looking for these things. I think it might have also been resveratrol. And so they had it all packaged up in this one beautiful little multivitamin or pack, a vitamin pack. And inside of that, I got not only the 3 things that I knew about that I was looking for, but that's when I discovered this whole idea about telomeres and telomere health. And they have a whole specific supplement that they're building specifically for that. And so I've been taking that for 7 years. I've been trying to even get my telomeres tested to see how I'm doing. Yeah. And I was able to get a test 2 or 3 years ago, and it didn't come back very good, if I'm honest with you. And I haven't been able to find it. It seems to be a hard test to get. So that's kind of how I got started with it. I was looking for 2 or 3 that seemed to be popular at the time, and I found them all in one package. And pretty much I've been on that same regimen now for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of it's kind of anti-aging. Of course, those are also beneficial for the cholesterol issue you've got. So you got to kind of double pack there, cover more than one base, which is always good. With supplements, less is more. But if you could tell us also a little more about the cleanses you were talking about. Do you vary which kind you use, or you mostly use the same one all the time?
Same one all the time. I just bought into this one company. They had a cleanse. I'd always wanted to try a cleanse. I was frankly scared to death to try a cleanse. It was kind of scary to me. This is also 7 years ago. And so I think the first one I did, it was a 2-day cleanse, which was a little challenging. And after that, I've done just a 1-day cleanse. It's 36 hours. I do my regular routine up until I go to bed one night. And then that begins the fast, and I don't eat again, or I don't eat anything. I don't drink any alcohol on cleansing day. For quite a while, I didn't drink any coffee. I love coffee. And then I read an article that says, hey, coffee's pretty good for you, and coffee might actually help the cleansing process. So whether that's true or not, I just bought into it, and I said, okay, I'm going to have coffee. So I do have coffee on my cleansing days. And then this company, Isogenics, has a cleansing formula, a mixture. It's basically put up with all kinds of roots and different kinds of things that are supposed to help the cleansing process. I've learned, and there's certainly one of the challenges in this business that we're in is there's so much mixed information out there. And I know there's people who believe that your bodies are naturally wired to cleanse. You don't need the extra cleansing formula. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. For me, it works. I feel good. My weight's maintained. My blood markers are all good. So I don't know if I would recommend what I do or not. I think the science is really pretty strong that intermittent fasting is really good for the body. I think it's how we were wired, back in the really, really good old days. And it makes sense to me that we have so much toxins that are pouring into our bodies from so many places that if some root mixture and stuff can kind of help that process, then I think it's probably a pretty good thing. Mm-hmm. I can tell your audience one more thing that kind of surprised me. So I do my blood work, and this is where I talk about developing best practices and just living through life and learning things. So when I started the regimen of my cleansing and my twice annual blood work, what I wanted to do is I did my blood work always after my full 36-hour fast and cleanse, thinking that my body would be at its cleanest, most beautiful self when I went to see the doc and I got my labs done. And I ran into a fellow who's been helping me with my physical fitness, and I told him about this. I was all proud of myself and said, yeah, and when I cleanse, then I go get my blood work done, and so I'm at my cleanest. And he says, dude, you have just stressed your body out by not eating for 36 hours, and you're messing things up with it. You should take your blood work at about 2 weeks, right in the middle of when you're not cleansing. That's when your body is at its most natural rested self. And so I did that for the first time about 2 years ago, and it cleaned up. I had a big problem with, I think it was a bilirubin marker. And it was like some stress on my liver, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
I started doing my blood work now without, opposite the cleansing cycle. Beautiful and clean and everything's fine. So, it's interesting, especially if you're just trying to figure it out on your own. What you don't know, you don't know. And sometimes that can have an impact. So that's where I go back to the fact that, this journey for all of us it's a day-to-day learning experience, not only learning what the science of the day is, but as soon as you apply that, the science of the day tomorrow might be very, very different, and that might then inform you to take different actions and different processes. So.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. Things have changed a lot over the years, and what has been suggested has changed a lot. And it's interesting that you were talking about the telomeres. I have just been doing emails to my list, and I was talking about stress and talking about that whole thing, and talking about actually how exercise is beneficial for helping slow that aging process down, besides all those great supplements. So, what are some of your favorite kinds of exercise that you regularly do?
I love exercise, and exercise, as I said, I think earlier, it's come very natural for me. When I was younger, and certainly through my teen years and in my early adult years, I was trying to become a professional athlete. So I was very, very hardcore. I exercised incredibly hard. And when I went out, tried for professional football 3 times over the course of 2 years and got cut on every single attempt. And finally, I was flying home from Orlando, Florida, and after the 3rd time, and realizing, well, this is over. Now I've got to go on and do something else. And that's fine. I adjusted to that, and I did that. But I didn't adjust to that in the way I trained. I still trained like a psycho. And all the way up until probably into my early 40s. And then I started training for, I finally got into running, long distance running. And of course, I had to do running for conditioning, but I never ever got into running mile after mile where you hit that runner's high. And I suddenly did that in my early 40s, and I got that runner's high, and I started pounding on miles, and I was enjoying it. And I decided I'm going to go try to qualify for the Boston Marathon by the time I turned 50. And no sooner had I set that goal than I started having a back problem that just completely knocked me off my feet to the point that I couldn't even walk. I was on crutches and didn't know what the hell was going on. And then I blew my back out with a disc. And from that point, it actually happened twice over the course of a couple of years. And I ended up with 2 back surgeries and everything's fine. But that first one taught me that I needed to slow down, that I needed to start exercising for health purposes, not for some sort of psycho ultimate athlete purposes. And so I stopped running. Of course, I couldn't run after the back surgery, and I started hiking. I pulled down on the weights a lot into much lighter weights, more reps, more health, less craziness. I started doing yoga back then. I haven't kept up my yoga practice. So today, what I work on is, I don't have all my philosophies, but I say you should do exercise you like. That's the first thing. So find something. And for me, in the summertime, I paddleboard for resistance training, and I hike for aerobic training. In the wintertime, I go to the gym, and I do mostly exercises, full body exercises for my resistance training, including crazy things called Turkish get-ups, which are a very complicated maneuver. I couldn't explain it to you today, but trying to really get all body balancing work that is resistance strength training, because you need that. So I do that instead of paddleboarding in the wintertime. And then I also continue hiking, and if I can't hike because of the weather, then I get on the treadmill and I get my aerobic training in. And I try to do that. I probably exercise legitimately 5, maybe 6 or 7 days a week. And I wear a Fitbit, and I try to I definitely get 70,000 steps almost every week. So I pay attention to that. And I try to get my 10,000 steps or more almost every day. And so I think, if you don't have to kill yourself. You just have to move. I think it's really important to get not just the aerobic, but also some resistance strength training. And it doesn't have to be much. The guy who works with me on my resistance training says he defines it as anything that puts more stress on your muscles than normal. Well, that's not much. So you don't have to be 200 pounds. You just have to be doing more. And then do it in a way that you can enjoy it. And that way you'll want to do it again.
Yeah.
And don't go, I think another big mistake that people make, and I've been exercising for so long, so it's no longer applies to me, but don't go too hard at the beginning, because especially if you haven't developed a good exercise practice, if you're not in shape, it's taken you years to get in the out of shapeness that you're in.
Yeah.
Give yourself the time to get slowly back into it and feel good doing it. You shouldn't feel really bad and wrecked doing it. If you feel that bad, you're doing too much. You're doing it too hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 That actually is fairly similar to my own philosophy of exercise. The hiking is one of the main, I don't go for, running and stuff, partially because I'm just concerned about impact to my joints and things like that. And it's like, walking's a whole lot safer and stuff. So I'm headed up, hiking up a mountain on Friday this week. So, and taking my list along one video. See, I made it, honest, I swear. So, but yeah, you have a lot of really good ideas, and that's one of my concerns lots of times with exercise is you can overdo it. Obviously, if you haven't done it in a while, that's why everywhere when they talk about exercising, they're telling you, talk to your doctor first before you start. If you haven't been doing anything, and stuff.
Yeah, there's a real trend underway right now with all of this extreme exercise and CrossFit and and 2 years ago I was at a paleo conference, and a guy named James Fitzgerald, who is now working with us at Happy Living, he's our Happy Living expert on personalized fitness. Mm-hmm. And he was doing a conference. He runs a company called OPEX Fitness, and he was doing a workshop called You Are Not an Athlete. And I thought, I kind of took offense to it. I said, well, I sure as hell am an athlete, but I wanted to go and listen to it, and I was writing about Happy Living. And he said, if you want to be hiking mountain trails when you're 90, you shouldn't be doing box jumps. And his point was, if you're exercising for health and well-being, you don't need extreme exercise. If you're trying to be the CrossFit champion of the world, which he was the first CrossFit champion of the world, then of course you have to be doing extreme exercise. But he also believes, as I do, that when you are training to be that elite athlete, you are stressing your body out so much, you're really on the tip of being very unhealthy. It's a very hard thing, I think, to grasp, but it is not a really healthy position to be, and it's not sustainable. As you see athletes come and go. But way down from there is, like he did a long interview with me. He says, what do you want to do? What's your goals in life, Matt? And one of my goals was, I want to hang on to my man card. I want to be able to pick up my wife's luggage when I'm 80 years old. And, I want to we live on a lake, and I wanted to be able to go out and pick up rocks that have fallen off our rock wall and restore them, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to lift my jet ski off and push it out into the water and not have to hire some kid to do it for me. So what I want to do is live healthily and well. I want to be able to walk normally, not just at 55, but at 95. That would be a huge accomplishment, just to be able to walk normally. So that means I need to train in a whole different way and much easier and much lighter. And so I went in for my second exam with him after a year of his program, and the body fat around my stomach, we did 7 measures on my body fat, and all of them had improved. But the one around my stomach had improved less, and so it was more fat than the rest of my body, which it had been also the year before. And so I made a snide comment about it that, we need to fix that. And he says, why do you need to fix it? That's not your goal. So he kind of caught me at my own lie. I want to have 6-pack abs. I don't. I can't have them unless I trained like that. And that's not my lifestyle. It's not really what I want. So I need to learn to say, this is healthy. This is how I can live long and well. And I need to adjust my training regime to fit that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, that's so key to also just to aging well. And aging gracefully, shall we say, is just a whole big part of it, besides just eating well, obviously, is the maintaining the movement. It doesn't have to be huge, but it's like that's what keeps us alive. If you're not moving, you're dying, it reminds me of my dad's philosophy, and he's going up the mountain with me, is that, it's like age is in your head. If you think you can't do it, if you buy into the whole philosophy out there that you're just going to get, more decrepit, as time goes along, and not do anything about it, or, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll get what you aim for. But if you decide age is just a number, and just because, I did it yesterday doesn't mean I can't do it tomorrow. If I climbed this 12 years ago, I'm going to try it again, kind of thing. And that's such a, a healthy way of looking at exercise and, life in general. So.
Yeah, and that goes back to my philosophy that I really do believe that any individual can get better today, tomorrow, every day for the rest of your life. Now, that doesn't mean that I believe that I have the raw physical strength today that I did when I was 25. I don't. I know that. And that certainly I'm not going to have that 25-year-old strength when I'm 75.
Yeah.
Fine. That makes sense. Now, having said that, about 3 years ago, I decided I wanted to start doing pull-ups again. I don't know if you know how hard pull-ups are, but they are hard exercise. And the first time I jumped on the bar, it was humiliating. I think I could only do one or two barely, and pulling and clawing and so on and so forth. But if I just kept at it, I read an article about how to get back into pull-ups, and it says you do half as many as you're capable of, half of your max, and do sets. And so do 3 or 4 sets during a workout. And so if all you can do is one, if you can't do any, you start with the lap machines. But in my case, I could do a couple. I could do 2 or 3. So I started doing sets of 2, and I just made them a regular part of my exercise regime. And I was in my 50s. And so by the time I turned, 51, I was doing more than I did when I was 50. And by the time I turned 52, I was up to 10 or 11 pull-ups. And they actually went from being something really hard for me to something I actually really look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
So if I keep doing them every day, every month, every year, if you keep hiking mountains every day, every month, every year, there's no reason we can't keep doing it. Of course we can. And I think the key is your mindset, as you point out, and the other key is stay active. You have to stay active. Keep moving.
Yeah, as long as you keep using it, you still have it and stuff. It's when you stop using it, then you have to rework it up again, and reacquire the ability to do all that stuff. So we've talked about a lot of different stuff, obviously. What are something that you would suggest as a kind of a takeaway that our listeners could, put into practice today?
Well, there's another Japanese concept that I learned probably about 30 or 40 years ago. I used it in business all the time. It's great for best practice development, and it's a concept called Kaizen. And the concept of Kaizen, it was developed back when the American automobile industry was in real trouble and Japan was just soaring like crazy. Mm-hmm. And what it started developing was Kaizen, which is small incremental improvements maintained over time add up to yield big results. So I would say start with something. If you want to improve your diet, start with some aspect of diet that is small and doable, and start doing that. If it's exercise, if you don't exercise at all, start really small. Decide that you're going to walk 1,000 steps a day, and then build up to to 2,000 and build up to 3,000 and just keep at it. And so start small and keep going and keep adding on to things. And with that starting small, when you add something in your life, there's another component that I like to talk about is don't give it back. So if you've developed a basic level of fitness, like I got my pull-ups up to a pretty good level a couple of years ago. Then I went to see this trainer and he said my body was all out of whack. And so he told me not to do pull-ups again until I got back in balance. And so I didn't do pull-ups for about a year, and now I'm right back where I was. I didn't want to give it up, but I was forced to give it up. If you get something you bring in, you decide you're going to drop sugars, and you decide to stop eating sugar, and once you've brought that into your life and you're starting to feel pretty good about it, then you decide, I'm going to go after bad fats. Don't give up the sugar. You've got that sugar under control now. Don't give it back. And then just slowly start adding things into your life that make you feel better, that you think or you've been told or you've heard or it makes sense to you will make you feel better, and try it out. And then I'm a big believer in measurement. So what I would do if you're starting down a new path and you want to clean up your nutrition, the reason you should want to do it is because your body's not working right, because what you've been putting into it's not been good for you. Well, if that's the case, you're going to see that in your blood work. And so take your blood work, get a marker, see where things are off, try your self-help, your improvement things, and go back 6 months later and measure again and see if you're on a positive track and getting all your markers and your blood work under control, and then just keep working at it one by one, slowly, day by day, step by step, and you build a nice, happier life over time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good advice for just about anything in life. It's like, start small and build. Keep adding to it, and that creates habits, and habits create a better life and a better lifestyle. So that is ground zero. That's where you start.
Yeah, I'll give you one other.
Sure.
I got this from Dr. Tom O'Brien. I think he's also a fellow panelist on this show.
Yeah.
And one of his interviews, and he was talking specifically about gut health and microbiome and all the bacteria in there and so on and so forth. And he said, if there's one thing you did, and that was to eat sauerkraut every day, that would have a major impact on your gut biome. So I heard him say that, and I was ready to take on one more small thing. And I went down and I found some organic sauerkraut. And all I could remember is from 30 or 40 years being forced to eat sauerkraut that I just hated it. That's all I could remember. But I said, you know what, if Dr. Tom says it's good for me and it's going to help my gut, I'm going to try it. And so for about the last year, I've been eating sauerkraut twice a day with lunch and with dinner. My 2 young daughters at home love it. They like how it tastes. I like how it tastes. I was totally surprised. My wife likes how it tastes. And so it's just one of those small things that can make a big difference. And so I would just keep looking for those types of things and keep adding on to your own best practices for nutrition and for physical exercise.
Mm-hmm. And don't try to add too many at once.
No. Go slow.
Get one down and then add another one.
Yes. Go slow. Go slow. Just keep going.
All right. So what is the free gift you've got for our listeners?
So our free gift, we don't have a lot of free gifts. What I've come up with is we do a blog post. I've got a couple of things. We do a blog post once or twice a week, and those posts are either written by me, which is basically my philosophy, my experiments, things that I'm trying out. And then we also have an RN, a registered nutritionist. We have a functional medicine doc, and we have a guy who specializes in exercise. So we're all writing to you and telling you about what's going on in our lives and giving you some of those small tidbits that you might want to bring into your life. Mm-hmm. In addition, we will begin at the start of the year. We've created something brand new called Blog Theater. And so some of our posts are going to be read and interpreted by a trained actor who does one-man plays. and we've got the first 2 or 3 pilots. They're really, really great. And so we do our posts come out Wednesday and Friday. Our blog theater is going to be coming out on Mondays. And we're also going to be doing some other charitable type videos on Mondays to tap into people's financial fitness side of things. So what our free gift, you can go to our website at happyliving.com. It'll say join for free. And when you do, we'll give, we're probably going to package all that together at the start of the year in one little email thing that'll come to you. And then you can see it all there and pick and choose what's right for you.
Okay. That sounds great. And obviously, you know, for just connecting up with you, it's at the happyliving.com address.
Yeah, my personal email address is matt@happyliving.com. I'd be pleased to speak with and answer any questions from this interview with any of our collective listeners.
All right. Well, that's very generous of you. Okay. So thank you, Matt, for being here today and joining me. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Come back tomorrow for more of the Gut Health Turnaround series.